Money is tokenized energy within a socio-political framework. It got me thinking money is energy. And of course, we did the 9-part series, and we spent a lot of time talking about energy systems and engineering as a discipline of manipulating energy and why it was critical to the human race and the human condition. And so we won't recover any of that because that's well-trod territory. But coming back to the question of what is money, and just focusing on it, I would say for our round 2 or part 2 of this series, I'd say money is tokenized energy within a socio-political framework. So we know money is energy, but tokenized energy, that is a dollar is a measure of energy, a gold coin is a measure of energy, a bale of tobacco that you're trading it's a token of energy. And how much energy? Well, that's where the socio-political framework comes in. Whereas, you can measure actual physical or engineering energy and it's objective, but money ends up being to a certain degree subjective because it's, if I show up on a deserted island and I've got a stack of gold coins and everybody has guns and they're shooting each other, they might not accept my gold coin. Whereas if I actually offer them bullets for their gun, they might think the bullets are actually better money than the gold coin. Just like cigarettes, right, are good money in a POW camp, but gold coins wouldn't be. So this question of what is money gets you really going. So if money is tokenized energy within a social-political framework, then we can look over the history of mankind and we realize that we've chosen many different ways to tokenize that energy. And we'll skip through most of them because they came and they went, but there are 3 that pop to mind that are interesting. One is the gold standard, the second is the fiat standard, and the third is the Bitcoin standard. And when you start asking what is money, you start asking, well, what's the best monetary system? And we've got these 3 systems to talk about. I think that, one thing that's pretty clear is that most people can't get their hands around Bitcoin because it's an utter paradigm shift. And why is it a paradigm shift? Well, because I think Bitcoin is the first digital money. It's the first digital money. Gold wasn't digital money, and fiat's not digital money either. And so economists and politicians and investors, they all lack the right mental model to understand Bitcoin because science and engineering were so intrinsic to gold that we took it for granted because gold was it's a 10-pound lump of something. And if you get slugged in the head with it, nobody had to explain that science and physics mattered. And then science and engineering kind of became like quasi-irrelevant in the fiat world. Everybody just kind of, they ignored science and engineering, and there were no immediate clear consequences. There were just the hyperinflations and the collapses of those fiat systems. But because they abandoned gold, and there was no digital money, the only alternative to one fiat, the Weimar Republic fiat currency was the pound, and that alternative, was an alternative to the next thing and the next thing. So we were comparing fiat currencies or fiat monies to each other. And so there was no real need to embrace science and engineering. And Bitcoin is this paradigm shift where we have digital money crashing into I guess what we'll call an analog money, or maybe a political money is a better way to describe it. And now we start to ask the question again, what is money? And I think tokenized energy isn't good enough to explain what is money. Another way to describe money is by coming back to the ideal model. What is the ideal model of money? Ideal money is a shared, immutable, correct ledger. You've heard the phrase, Bitcoin is a shared immutable ledger, and people debate about whether it's truly immutable or not. But a crypto asset network, fully decentralized and mature, is the closest thing we can get to an immutable shared ledger in the history of the world. I think a lot of times when people describe it as a shared immutable ledger, they leave off the correct or the mathematically correct because it's almost implied. But I think that if you were to focus upon the three critical dimensions of ideal money, you would say it's a ledger that's shared. Everybody in the political system has to have the same access to the ledger. It has to be immutable. No one can doctor it, but it has to be correct, mathematically complete or mathematically proper, because if it's incomplete or incorrect, then it's not ideal money. So if I take that as a model, money is a shared, immutable, correct ledger, right? Then I can imagine the perfect money would be, some godlike being comes down on earth and they create this perfect, uncorruptible system, and they telepathically drop that shared, immutable, correct ledger into the heads of every human being. And every time you incur a debt, it updates the ledger. And when you incur a credit, it updates the ledger. And no one can corrupt the ledger.
This is getting right to the heart of property, right? Where it's essentially a list of who owns what. And that ownership is premised on what favors have you rendered to the market. Then you've earned some right to redeem favors from the market. And money is just kind of the ultimate form of property, and one that can be redeemed for any other form of property.
Yeah, I mean, a shared, immutable, correct ledger could be used to allocate ownership of all intellectual property. You kind of need it to keep track of your music rights or your video rights or your movie rights on your iTunes store. Mm-hmm. What do you own? Or the registration and licenses. Can I enter a building? Can I exit? Can I cross a border? What are my rights and what are my obligations and what do I own and what do I share? And it all comes down to just a shared database, but that database needs to be immutable and correct.
Yep.
And that is property, the essence of property.